First up is Andrea, and yeah, this, it was excellent to start with, and it's only gotten better. Um, I mean, those knees, look at those, they're great. Um, and yeah, better contour with the legs overall, as you mentioned. Um, and yeah, that looks really good. Looks a little narrow, that arm there. I'm wondering, but it's not that important. I mean, you'll figure it out when you start modeling it. But I'm just wondering if that's. Look at the height here. Just imagine it'll be a little thicker. But again, not a big deal. You'll figure it out in 3D. Yeah, it's just excellent. Not much to say, and yeah, and this hasn't changed, but it's great. I mean, it should work well for this. Good. Yeah, excellent work. Next up is Elena, and yeah, the character is looking good. Um, I think that there's some issues with the feet, the way they look very flat from the front, and there doesn't seem to kind of be an ankle so much. It seems to go like right from leg into foot, although from here you have a little bit more of an ankle, although you're going to want to model this straight and not at an angle. Normally we do palms facing down, and this is kind of at an angle. And you might just want like a separate study of the hands or use some photo reference for hands, might be a good idea. Um, yeah, and I'm thinking maybe a little bit more mass on the thighs and butt just to kind of, um, he's a little top heavy right now, which isn't impossible, but so yeah, I think feet and ankles need a little bit of work, and then some, maybe just photo reference for the hands, or a better drawing. But overall, I think this is, definitely usable. And yeah, I can see that you added a lot of detail to the bathroom, the toilet paper, the towel here, toothbrush. Although be careful about scale because it looks a little. I would just double check your scale and everything. That toothbrush, for example, looks tiny, and I'm concerned about the height of the toilet compared to the sink and some of that stuff. So, just maybe do some measurements and try to make all the scale right. Um, but yeah, I think that was it. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is usable, and should work well. Next up is Francis, and yeah, this is looking very good and clean. I think, if you have the arms up this high, you might want to give it a little bit more of a shoulder shape there. Um, I like this on the arm, although if you do the fingers, make sure they're spread. I mean, you want them to kind of be as straight as possible with a gap in between each. Um, feel like the ankles are getting a little narrow here and there's not much mass to the foot. You might want to look at some reference of a boot from the front and side because, if you were to draw horizontal lines here, I would think that this height would be much thinner than this height there, it looks like. Anyways, it looks like this from the front view, the boot is missing some mass. Um, yeah, it's a good clean drawing. I think it'll work well. I would kind of have the hands going out a little bit more straight rather than down at an angle. And you can do the arms like that, or you can go straight out to the side. Either one's okay. But yeah, I think this is working well. I know you have a number of reference images in there. I think that looks cool. It'll be interesting. I think the colors are maybe a bit saturated. You might want to pull back on that a little bit. Kind of desaturated. It's a photo reference, always a good thing to have. Oh good, some hand reference, excellent. That'll help with the hand modeling. Although when you model it, I wouldn't go so fully spread like that. I would go, just kind of as parallel as they can be with there being a gap, and then of course this looks like very forcibly spread out. Which I guess could work. Oh, some sand reference for the ground. Okay, that's cool. I like that image. It's nice. Oh, that one's really good too. Great. Yeah, so I think this is going to work well. I think it's a good design. I think, yeah, maybe some focus on the boots, maybe get a photo reference for boots. Um, and then the gloved hand is good. Maybe not quite such spread fingers when you model it because they look a little hyperextended. But yeah, overall this should work well. Next up is Lindsay, and this is some good reference for the child's face version of the wooden robot. Yeah, good reference image for that. That's very different, very stylized. So, guess I imagine you're gonna go with something more like that because that's more similar to the 3D model reference image you had. Might be good to kind of narrow that down, and another space with a wooden model there. Yeah, I think this is definitely a big improvement. There's a lot more shape to it. You're going to want to make sure that everything matches up to the front and side. This is at a bit of an angle, and these feet are floating off the ground, so clearly, some of the stuff isn't matching. The front seems like it's got. Yeah, I mean, if we kind of look at the bottom of the torso, it's a little off compared to that. So, kind of, you might want to get in there and touch things up to get those to match, but. Yeah, I like that you've segmented the torso. I think that's going to give you a lot more flexibility. And I like that there's some shape to the body parts. I guess one thing to think about is that the body you have is sort of an adult proportioned body for the most part. It's at least not a child proportioned body. So the biggest difference is the number of heads high of a adult. The kind of classic adult is sort of 8 heads high, and a child, depending on the age, might be 4 heads high or 5 heads high. So I think if you're going to do a child face, you need to do child body proportions. So you might want to alter the proportions and look at some reference for a child body if you're going to have a child head. But yeah, I think this is going to be workable. And was there any other ones? I thought there was. Oh, okay, that's that classic character rig. I've seen a lot of that guy. Yeah. Oh, another interesting face, and that's more of a adult or young adult, so a bit of a departure. But yeah, I mean, look at again with that. What is he? Maybe 3 heads high. And depending on the age, a little older would be 4, a little older would be 5, etc., etc. So, yeah, think about how much of a child versus how much of an adult you want to make him, and then make sure the body proportions match. Next up is Katerina. Yeah, this is coming along well. I think that the shapes are a little bit oversimplified. A little bit too primitive looking, so I might try to get a little bit more shoulder, a little bit more of a kind of an indication of an elbow and an underarm, and then again here kind of more of a sense that there's like a crotch there and a knee shape and these maybe some tapering, and so I think that the shapes got a little bit too primitive. You normally do the palms facing down. Those are very short, stubby fingers, so I would try to get the hands proportioned. I understand it's a cartoon character, but I would try to get them proportioned a little bit more to a real hand, just to allow the character to, functionally use his hand, because those are some really short fingers. So think about adjusting the proportions of the hands and fingers. And yeah, I mean, the legs, you've got a lot of shape here. But the thing is, if we're not going to see the legs, my recommendation is that you do not model the legs. So I think that some of that shapeliness you have in the legs, try to find a compromise where you get some of that shape in the pant leg. But then I would say no need to actually model the what we don't ever see. And yeah, this is a nice sketch, and it's looking good. You got bookshelves and stuff on the wall. You could think of another photo or something like that, or you could have another window if you wanted, something like that. But I think this looks good. A couple more reference images. Yeah, good, clean, simple stuff. Um, Maybe go with something a little bit more. I mean, you got. I guess when I look at the character, I think of somebody who is from the past a little bit, um, just because of the nature of the clothing and the look of the character. But all your furniture choices are quite modern. So you might think about, yeah, and there's our paperman again. You might think about some references that, kind of, it just looks like he might be from another era, you know, like 50, 60 years ago to me. It doesn't have to be, but that's what, calls up. And so maybe furniture that has a little bit more, furnishings that have a little bit more, history to them might be better. Next up is Vincent, and yeah, looks there's some good shape going on with the character. Um, might make the legs parallel. I think maybe give it a little bit more of a butt there, because it just kind of goes straight from waist into leg, and I think more of a shoulder. And I guess the way this goes, skinny here and very wide there, um, doesn't seem to match the side view. So I feel like there's something kind of to resolve between these two. Because he's at his widest here, and I guess he's at his widest here, but he doesn't, he doesn't have to. He could be a little bit more straight front to back. I don't know. I might just kind of play with that shape a little bit more. The hands need some attention. It might be interesting to do a study of the hands using some photo reference to get, so you can do these sort of stylized angular fingers and stuff, but try to, yeah, maybe do it from above or something. Think about what kind of eyelids you want going on. But yeah, I think this is a very usable design. Oops. Yeah, and you've already modeled this and you started to put props in, so that's great. Okay, a little toilet there, so you're kind of ahead of the game with the environment, which is great. Just think about age and wear and tear and those kinds of things, because right now everything is kind of clean and perfect, but you're already way ahead of the curve, so that's really good. Yeah, so I think this should work well. Next up is Natalie, and it's certainly a better drawing than the last time around. However, I just think you need to try a different concept. I think the wall splattering thing is not going to work well for just sort of the design of the assignments of the class, and having a more kind of fleshed out environment with more props and detail, maybe taking something from life instead would be better. So I would back away from the blob and the wall splatter thing, and yeah, try something different there. This is definitely an improvement over previous ones. I still think kind of some of the dark colors make us lose some detail. It's a little asymmetrical. I would look out for some of the face proportions. She's got kind of a pretty short forehead compared to, and sort of a very small chin. So I might, move the lips up a little bit to even that out, and maybe give out a little bit more forehead. You definitely need a side view as well. Legs should be parallel, feet should be flat on the ground, facing forward. The hands look a little miniaturized too. So yeah, as far as drawing quality, definitely improved. I still think this needs some additional work. We didn't get a side view, did we? No, just these two. So yeah, you definitely need the side view of the character as well. And you may just want to decide to go with either the provided character design or some photo reference. Next is Yao Nan, and this very good environment seems very much even better. It's really great. I love the fish thing here. I think that's kind of funny, and I like these cats or whatever that is. That picture there, and this all this stuff here is cute with the little chick and stuff, and yeah, bowl of fruit, and it really fleshed out. It's just these little wind chimes here and plants. It's really great, really really good. Don't have anything to add on that. Um, and yeah, this has improved a lot too. I think we're not going to try to do fur in this class, so that'll be just painted into the texture, which is fine. I like that you've done some detail in the eye. Still have some concerns about how the mouth will come together, but I think you can figure it out. I like the paw detail drawings. When you model the tail, model it straight, and then we'll, bend it using joints. So it's looking really good, nicely detailed, and some good rendering on there. Good work on this. Next up is Johanna, and yeah, I like that you've kind of figured out an overhead layout of the scene. I think that's smart and will serve you well. Um, One note is that just when you're photographing these, try to get bright. Ideally, you would use a scanner, but if you don't have access to a scanner, just make sure your lighting is a little more bright and evenly lit because it's a little distracting. I think it's good that you have the matching front and side. Um, and yeah, things seem like you've got a lot of worked out. Some of the shapes on this feel a little odd, and I understand. You're going for a fishy character, so I guess I'm looking for things to have more human shapes, and maybe that's the balance. But you might want to look again at some human anatomical head reference and see where it's different, and if it's intentional to give it a sort of fish head shape, that's fine. But if it's not, then you know make some tweaks. I like this hand study a lot. That's great. That's really nice. I think the foot could use a little more shape to it, but the hand's nice. And with the webbed in between, that'll be fun. And by fun, I mean somewhat difficult. I think the front view is better. I think it's a little kind of skinny on top for the size of the thighs and legs. Not that that's not possible, but it just feels a little out of proportion. So there might be some playing with proportions in that hand. I guess that's okay length. Hands look a little small to me, but again, and the knee here looks kind of low where that comes out. So there's some funniness to the shape of this, and they could clean up there a little bit. Neck looks a little narrow in both views actually. The head's on the small side, so I might go a little bigger on that. So I would say some proportional tweaks might be good, but it's definitely improved quite a bit. And yeah, nice concept artwork there. That's an interesting reference as well. So yeah, a lot of good work, a lot of good improvements. I think again on the character, some improved anatomy and proportions would help. Next up is Ariana, and got some foot reference and hand reference and some body reference, which is all good stuff. I think, and then last week, just as a reminder, yeah, you can see where there's a lot of proportional issues when you kind of compare it to a real human. But so yeah, there's definitely, I think, the only catch, yeah, there's a lot of the weird small head and some stuff going on in last week's stuff, so that's going to help. I think that the catch is that we're not trying to do a photorealistic human in the class, so you kind of have to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to take those kind of real proportions, but then kind of stylize it to simplify it for my character. So those are the kind of decisions you'll have to make. But certainly working from these images, you'll get a good body shape to start with, and I think that's going to help you a lot. And if there's any more thought on the environment, it'd be good to know. Next up is Sharon, and um, this is looking great. I would tend to make the tail going straight out the back. You can always bend it in position later. As far as the boots versus feet, I would choose one or the other. I wouldn't try to model the feet underneath the boots. So if the character is going to be wearing boots, skip modeling the feet and just do the boots. If the character is not going to be wearing the boots, well then obviously skip the boots. Still think maybe a little more work on the like a hand study for that. And yeah, it looks like you've worked on the proportions. That's looking more believable. And yeah, just keep going back to reference and look, seeing what you can add. Right now, this is looking like I don't know, maybe the ceiling's looking a little low to me for a gym. I tend to think they have the ceilings on the taller side. Not that they couldn't have a low ceiling. And maybe this could be on more of a platform somehow that they have to kind of step up into it. So yeah, and just be looking at reference and adding more detail and all those kinds of things. But I think as a set, it will work well. Next up is Shane, and yeah, definitely looking improved. There's a lot of muscle tone and shape going on here. You could even back off of it a little bit because now it requires sort of a skin tight uniform. So if you wanted to find a little balance where you bring back some of the kind of feeling of cloth hanging off of them, you could, but I really like all the attention to anatomy that you have going on here. And good here. I feel like he's kind of missing a butt, like it's sort of the leg seems to go almost right up into the hips. I know there's sort of a hint of one there, but I think maybe a little bit more. Also, I would say kind of the mass of the thigh looks very big compared to the mass of the calf, so I might try to go a little meatier on there and maybe get a little more shape to the foot. Okay, yeah, pretty sparse, but good. Okay, yeah, I like this, all this thought on the eye anatomy, that's very cool. And I guess that's some part of the technology there. So yeah, I think maybe a little more thought on the environment, but the character is looking really good. And I think you have a hand study we saw before, so I think you have some, you've thought through the hand. So yeah, good work on this.